Greetings, this is Shane Ross, and this is a tutorial dealing with tapeless formats and importing them into Final Cut Pro 7. Now the first part of this tutorial will cover pretty much every professional tapeless format in terms of what to do after you shoot, or if you have long shoots, while you are shooting, when it comes to offloading and backing up your tapeless media. The second part of this tutorial will only deal with the formats that Final Cut Pro works with via log and transfer. So a few formats like XDCAM HD and for the most part RED, and a handful of others that need to be converted with outside or third-party applications, those won't be covered. What I will show you is a process used to import P2 footage, both DVC Pro HD and AVC Intra, XDCAM EX, AVC HD footage from a wide list of camera makers, and Canon DSLR footage from the Canon 5D, 7D, and with a small hack, the Canon T2i. Okay, let's start from the beginning. You have gone out and shot your masterpiece with your wonderful tapeless camera, whatever it may be. Now you have this card with media on it. What do? The first thing you do, the very first thing, before you do anything else, is back up the card. Back up everything. I cannot stress how important it is that you back up all of the information on these cards. Consider these files your master tapes. Like when you pulled a tape from a camera and put it on a shelf, you kept the tape. Well, with tapeless media, the media gets used again and again, because most formats are too expensive to just put on a shelf and go out and buy more. What you do, instead of keeping the card, is back up everything from that card. Every small file. Don't just grab what you think are the important files. Everything is important. Without this full card structure, Final Cut Pro won't be able to import the footage. Sure, some folders might be empty, but Final Cut Pro still looks for certain structure, and if it doesn't see it, if things are missing, it pops up with an error saying something like incomplete file structure, and it won't import. Now people ask, why should I archive these files? Why not the files I import? Well, first off, the camera originals might be much smaller files, so to store them doesn't require a lot of space. And second, the files you import might be specific to that editing system. What if a few years down the road you change your mind and go with another editing system? Then all of this footage you imported from one system might not work on the new system. But if you had the camera originals, then you can bring those files into the new system into formats that it works with. A few of these formats, like P2 and S/S, will require a driver for the computer to see the card. To get these, you go to the camera manufacturer's website and download the drivers. XDCAM EX will also require a plugin to allow Final Cut Pro to bring in the footage via log and transfer. It's a simple download. Other formats, like AVC HD and Canon DSLR, they use normal compact flash cards and SD cards. These will mount right away in the desktop without any additional software. Now, how do you get the footage off of these cards? Well, as an example, I have two cards mounted on my desktop, a P2 card and an SD card. The SD card has come from my Canon 550. I also have a hard drive attached to the system. This is a bus-powered 2-drive unit set up in the RAID 1 configuration, meaning that the data I copy to it will be mirrored on both drives. Added protection in case one of the drives should fail. As a note, before you mount any card on your desktop, please flip the Record INHIBIT tab over to protect it. Why? The Mac OS likes to write hidden files to any storage device you attach to the system, and this can cause problems when you try to import footage. Not always, but it isn't uncommon. Now the most basic way to do this is a Finder level copy. So what I do is I open up my backup drive, and I want to create a new folder to drag these files into. I want to keep the entire card structure, and as we see, this has two files, and if we go to the P2 card, this has several files in there. If we just close this, we'll have two. Well, I want to keep those files intact. I do not want to change the name of this to anything. I do not want to change the name of this to anything. They need to be exactly the way they are labeled right now. So what I do is I go to File, New Folder. This folder I give a unique name. This is the real name. You might name this folder like the name of your project, say Andrew Jackson and then card 1, card 2, so AJ001, and if there's an A camera or a B camera, you can do A1 and then AJ001B, and so on. Or if this is a larger shoot that might span several projects, I might name the cards via the location. This one being LAX for Los Angeles, and then the date, 08/28/10, and then the card number, 01 or 02, and then if it's an A camera, A. This way you can tell where it was shot, what date it was shot, which camera it was, and which card it was in that camera. Okay, I'm just going to delete this file right there. Now the most basic thing you can do is a Finder level copy. To do this, I'm going to open this up, and then I'm going to open up my P2 card, and I'm going to drag both items onto this folder. This will copy things over exactly as you see them, but I'd like to warn you that this is not the best way to do this. There have been reports of people dragging things over just like this, and not everything being copied over. This could be disastrous because, of course, you erase your card as soon as you back it up and reuse it. Okay, with P2, you happen to have an alternate choice on how to back these files up. On the Panasonic website, they have an option for support for downloads. One of the applications you can download is called P2CMS. P2CMS is an application that allows you to log your footage, view your footage without the need for Final Cut Pro or any other editing application, and also allows you to back your card up fully. But if you don't have P2, say you have one of the many other formats out there, such as Red, AVCHD, Canon, what have you, there's one application that I and other professionals highly recommend. It's called ShotPut Pro, and it's by Imagine Products Incorporated. This product supports multiple formats. It supports Panasonic P2, AVCHD, Sony S/S, JVC's Pro HD that shoots direct to QuickTime, Red 1, Canon 7D 5D, or any AVCHD, compact flash, or SD card that happen to be on the market. What this product does that sets itself above the rest and makes itself very important is that when it copies the files over, it verifies the data. That is, it compares what is on the card with what is on the drive. So if a file is missed, it'll make sure to go back and grab it and copy it over. This way, you're sure to have everything. For XDCAM EX, there's no direct interface within Final Cut Pro. For that, you need to get the XDCAM EX transfer utility. This is a separate outside utility that you use to view and to export your XDCAM EX footage to QuickTime that Final Cut Pro imports. For Red, while Final Cut Pro does support not only the importing of the proxy files direct from the drive into the project, it also has an option in the log and transfer section of Final Cut Pro. But the transcoding of Red to ProRes in Final Cut Pro has been found to produce a softening of the image. This is something that doesn't happen when you use Red Cine X. So for the proper Red workflows, it is best to go with their proven workflows, which can be found at reduser.net. To work with Canon, you need to install the EOS log and transfer plugin. If not, Final Cut Pro will not see the information on the cards. To find that, you go to their Canon Mark II site, click down here at Drivers and Software, select your operating system, and there is the software, the EOS plugin for Final Cut Pro. H.264 that the camera produces, while it might look like it works natively with Final Cut Pro at first, will slow down and eventually become a beast to edit. H.264, while QuickTime, isn't an editable format. It must be converted to an editable format like ProRes. Okay, let's hide this. Now let's go into Final Cut Pro. Okay, inside Final Cut Pro, the first thing I would like to do is I would like to make a logging bin. I can go File, New, Bin, or press Command B. And we'll call this Card 1. To set this as the logging bin, you can either right-click on it and choose Set Logging Bin, or if you do not like to right-click, you can go to the File menu and do the same thing, Set Logging Bin. What this does is it puts all the files that you import inside this one bin, instead of dumping them all about loose in the browser. If you have lots of files in here already and you want to import something, it's nice to have them contained inside one folder instead of strewn about your project. Okay, now let's go File, Log and Transfer. Here's the basic log and transfer interface. This is the browser area where you will see information about your footage, the transfer area where you see the progress of your footage as it's transferred, and the viewing and logging area. To see what kind of formats Final Cut Pro imports, you click on this little sprocket drop-down menu right here and choose Preferences. Let me make this a little bit bigger. As you've seen here, I have several options, including Red. I did install the Red plugin to bring in the footage. I also have AVCHD, P2, and Canon E1. Now as you note, the P2 plugin only lists P2 AVC Intra. It does not list P2 DVC Pro HD. That is because DVC Pro HD comes in as DVC Pro HD. You don't have any option to convert it to anything else. AVC Intra, however, can either come in natively, right here, or you can convert it to DVC Pro HD, or you can have it transcode to any one of these ProRes formats. Red you can bring in native, or all those other options, AVCHD, the same thing. All those other options, only this one doesn't offer native. It offers an option called the Apple Intermediate codec. With Canon, you have all the options as well as AVCHD. When faced with all these options, you might wonder, which one should you choose? Well, that all depends on what your final output source is going to be. If you're going to high-def tape, or perhaps to broadcast, or maybe another high-def format such as Blu-ray, you might choose Apple ProRes 422. If you're going to DVD or specifically to the web, you might choose Apple ProRes 422 LT. It is virtually indistinguishable from Apple ProRes 422, only it has a lower data rate and takes up less space on your system. If you're going to do the traditional online-offline workflow, where you want to import the footage at a lower resolution and then import it later at full resolution when you're done, you might choose Apple ProRes Proxy. The neat thing about ProRes Proxy is that it allows you to have a full raster image, so when you online, if you have any stills or graphics, everything is already at full resolution. The other offline codecs, like DV or Offline RT, you will have to redo your graphics or your stills when you online at full resolution. For this example, I'm going to bring in AVC intro footage, and I'm going to choose Apple ProRes 422 because this will be a project that's going out to tape. I click OK. So to bring the footage into this browser area, you go up here and you click on this little folder with a plus button. This is called Add Volume. I'm going to click on my G drive, on my demo files where I happen to have AVC Intra, and there's this HPX 3000 Africa. I want to bring in this Africa footage. You click Open. This will then add all the footage into this area right here. As you can see, the name you've given the folder is the volume. This volume will be translated into the real number in Final Cut Pro. This right here allows you to scroll through your footage and see what you have. If you click on it, you can then see it over here in your viewer window. And if you click down here, you can drag through the footage to view what you have, or press play. If you would like to, say you shot 5 minutes of something and the only thing interesting that happened in the last 2 minutes, you can mark in and out points. You can mark in and then out, and only import this section of the footage. You do not need to transfer all of your footage. Now down here in the logging area, you'll note that my folder name has become a real number, but the clip name is that really odd clip name that appears up here on the side. If you had AVCHD, let's go ahead and add some of that just to show you. Let's go back to my demo files, AVCHD, Golden Gate, boom. If I go down here, you will see that these clips come in as clip number 1, clip number 2, clip number 3. If you shoot multiple cards, you will end up with multiple clip number 1s, clip number 2, clip number 3. And if you bring in these names as clip number 1, and Final Cut Pro sees that there's multiple clip number 1s, it's going to confuse the system if ever you need to recapture this footage or if you go to online this footage later. So it's very important you give this footage a unique name. Okay, let's go ahead and eject this card right here and just deal with this Africa footage. Okay, I'm going to show you what to do in this logging area. Let's add this one clip here. This is a neat looking one, a hyena. Alrighty, over here in this area in the viewer window, you have ways to view through your footage. You can click on this little thing right here, which is like a shuttle. It'll shuttle back and forth. You have a little jog wheel. You can jog the footage forward and then back. And this is play. If you have an in point and an out point, you can play in to out. And this is how you mark your in points. You can mark your in here or out there, or use the I and O key. Now if you like to shuttle through your clips, instead of having to go over here and click again and then do more information, click again, more information, you can click them back and forth from your clips using these two arrow keys. And after you've made all your modifications, you can click Add Clip to Queue. Now let's go down here to the logging area. As you can see here, the real number is the name that you've given the folder that you backed up the card. And the clip name is this obscure number that the card has given the file. Now you can change this clip name to anything you want. This can be yaks. Not quite sure what those are. Yaks. I do know this is hyena, so let's do hyena. H-Y-E-N-S. Hyenas. And as you notice over here, it has changed it to hyenas and to yaks. Now don't worry, the name change you give right down here, yes, it'll change the name right there, but Final Cut Pro will always remember the original name on the card. There's other metadata included in these files, including a unique clip identifier number. So no matter what you change this name right here, you can always right-click and revert to original metadata, like this and like this. Or if you recapture, Final Cut Pro will remember what the original name was. Let's continue down here. So I'm going to name this Hyenas. And if I wanted to, I could add a scene 1, take 1, an angle, and any other log note I want to do. Like, let's just say this is the Serengeti area. If I spelled Serengeti right, I have no idea. You can add any sort of information you want to down here. And then when you go to the next clip, you can add more information. Or you can click on this little folder plus, and it'll do scene 1, shot 1. If you go down here, it's going to start all over again. Scene 1, shot 2, angle, and so on. If you want to start importing this footage right away, there are certain name presets that you can assign to the clips. It defaults to none, but if you click on this, you'll see you have a whole lot of other options. You can have be the clip name with the clip date and time. So it'll be Hyenas, the name you've given it, plus the date it was shot and the time it was shot. Or you can just give the clip name, the current name with counter, so it could be Hyenas 01. Or you can choose to use the clip date and time so that it will then display the date it was shot and the time it was shot, and each clip would have a different time. Or what I like to do is have a custom name with counter. If I'm in a hurry, I'll give the clips the name of the card, say Africa 01, and then I'll have a little extra counter, a number after that. It'd be 001. The next one to come in is 002, 003, and so on. This way I have a reference to go, these are all the clips from this card. And then later on, I can rename those clips inside Final Cut Pro. Let's take a quick look at the import settings. The import settings allow you to choose video, or audio, or both, and they allow you to choose which audio tracks you want to bring in. You can choose to turn some off if they do not contain any audio. This helps conserve space. You can bring the audio in as dual mono or as a stereo pair. And if you highlight several clips and turn off 3 and 4, for example, you can apply this to the selection so that all of those clips right there will then only bring in audio 1 and 2. Okay, let's go back to the logging area. Okay, let's start the first clip. Now, one of my favorite things about this Tapeless workflow is that while you're importing the footage, you can continue to work. Like, let's say, let's change this name. You can also change it up here just by clicking on it. This is bird, but of course I have it set to come in as Africa 01. If I click Add Clip to Queue, or Add Selection to Queue down here, it will then import the footage. And we can see over here that it has already come in. Now the cool thing is that while it's importing, let's go ahead and select a bunch here, Add Selection to Queue. While this is importing, I can continue to work. So I can come in over here, double click on 01, and I can scroll through this footage and play it while this is working in the background. So now I come in and do Africa 02. And if I want to, I can then rename this to Bird in River. And I can log my footage while it is being captured down here at the same time. This is a big advantage over tape, because with tape, of course, you have to capture the entire tape, where with Tapeless, you can capture the Tapeless formats while you continue to work. Okay, let's stop this process. Another thing I'd like to point out is up here in the columns view. There are only a few columns that show up, such as the volume, media start, and media duration. But if you right-click up here, you have access to all sorts of information. This is all the metadata that is stored on those files. Now, unfortunately, Final Cut Pro will not import all of this information. It can view it, but it won't import it. But if you wanted to, you can choose one of these columns so that you can see what it is, and then add it down here to your log notes. A sort of manual way of adding the metadata that otherwise would not come into the system. Okay, now you've imported your footage and you want to get rid of this card so that you can bring in some more footage. Well, I want to point out the safe way to eject the card. There's a little eject button right here. All we need to do is click on any clip and then press the eject button. This will eject the card. Let me go ahead and load this footage back up again. The thing not to do is highlight your footage and press the delete key. When you do this, you'll be presented with a warning. Are you sure you want to delete the selected media? This will delete the media from your original source volume. That means that you will remove this shot from your card or from your backup. It will be gone. You are deleting it from the source volume. You do not want to do this. Click Cancel. The safe way to eject the card is again by pressing the Eject button. Eject volume. Now if you want to edit some formats natively, like the MXF files that the Panasonic P2 cameras produce, then you will need to look at third-party solutions like MXF for Mac, Calibrated, or Raylite. And note that while these allow you to have nearly instant access to your P2 media, you might not want to edit them from the archive drive. Those are the masters. If that drive failed, you'd be up a creek without a paddle. Rather, you want to copy those files to your media drive, and then access those with the third-party applications. One benefit to those applications is that they allow you to access far more metadata than Final Cut Pro imports. And if you are a metadata freak, and I can be at times, you need to look at these solutions. Thank you for putting up with my voice for this long. I know it can be a bit droning. I do my own temp VO, so I understand. I wish you success in all your tapeless ventures. Thanks for watching. Now get back to work.